I wish I had my cup of coffee. It's right over there, but I'm like tethered to the set, so I want so badly to walk over there and grab it. I might do that because we're not live on air yet. But we'll be jumping in live with Dr. Jim Siebert and Josh Morgerman, who will be joining us to talk about all things hurricanes. Jim.
I guess I'm here already. I guess they saw
me
in the early shot. Yeah, so we're kind of just getting set up right now.
Yeah.
Waking up a little bit. And all honestly, too, this is super early for Josh. All right. I'll just tell you right now, he's not necessarily a morning person. But we appreciate that he's happy to come up. There he is, Josh.
Should we bring him in?
He's here. There you are. How are you doing this morning? Are you awake?
Yeah. Just rolled out of bed like 10 minutes ago. No, and I would only do this for you guys.
Josh, I woke up like this.
Yeah, she did.
Me too. Same, right?
Except the difference is...
I just woke up too.
Yeah, Chris is wearing makeup today. Normally, she's a non-makeup kind of a thing.
No, I am kind of a sweatpants, as unattractive as possible.
No,
we're just like, that's how I roll. Lots of leggings. As a mom, I know that every mom joining me with their cup of coffee is feeling that this morning, 100%.
I'm usually just a mess. It doesn't matter what time of the day or night it is. As you know, I mean, this is me. It doesn't really change. Maybe we should talk a little weather this morning, huh? Tell people what we're doing.
The coolest thing about this, before we get into too much,
and
Jim.
Pay no attention to the man in the...
Guys, it's John's birthday tomorrow. So say happy birthday to John. But the coolest thing about this, Dr. Jim, is right now we're live on Facebook, we're live on Twitter, we're live on YouTube, we're live on Rumble, we're all over social media, and we want to interact with you. So we want everybody to put their questions, just talk to us, hang out with us. All of our meteorologists are downstairs in the newsroom. They're in all of these chats too, interacting with folks. Our producers are jumping in. We want to make this a community. We want to hear from people. We want to hang out and give you guys a chance to talk to these guys. And I already have a question from Karen in New Jersey. I think it's Karen NJ is her handle. Question for the hurricane. It is for Josh, but question for the hurricane man. If you had a chance to go on the Hurricane Hunter plane, what data would you be most interested in capturing? I love that question.
Yeah.
That's a great one. And that's actually... something she must have read my mind because it's something I'm planning on doing soon. It's kind of on my bucket list. The thing I would most want out of that experience is not actually the data, but we've all seen those shots where they're going through the eye wall and then boom, they clear it. They get into that clear eye with the stadium effect and the blue sky. That moment of coming from the eye wall into the clear eye. The way they break out into that, that is why I want to do that experience. So it has to be a fully formed hurricane. I don't want to go flying around in some messy tropical depression.
An invest.
Sorry,
no invest for Josh.
No, exactly. No sheared, exposed low. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Truth be told, I have been invited to go with the hurricane hunters many times. But the problem is, and this is when I was back in Houston, they would invite me when a storm was coming towards Houston. And I'm like, guys, I can't go. Right. So I sent my weekend meteorologist, John Dawson, he got to go. Because,
JD?
Yep, JD, he got to go. And again, it's a bucket list. For all meteorologists, it's a bucket list thing that you would love to be able to do.
You got to have the stomach for it, though.
Yeah, it's a rough ride.
Ken Graham, the director of the National Weather Service, he talked about how he was like, the plane literally drops in altitude very, very quickly, and you're constantly in that. So if you're someone who flies and is like, you know what, I prefer there not be turbulence, you're going to get it in such a spectacular way. And I know that's what literally keeps Josh's blood pumping. But I don't know. Now that I, like when in my younger days, I know. But now I don't know if I have the stomach for it.
Well, and another thing too, the plane itself is not made for comfort. It is made for research.
It's built for speed.
So, and there's no flight attendants. So you got to bring your own food. It's, there's some things that are not easy about it, but still, it's something that you've got to do at least once. So I think we're going to have to reach out to them and let me go like one that's way far away that we don't have to worry about yet.
Yeah,
that's what I could do.
So you will do the invest. So your team
absolutely. I will do the invest, which is probably more likely that I'd be able to go anyway.
Right.
If it's at the invest level, I can get back here on time. But
You can have it.
So
Yes.
that was that was actually a really interesting question right out of the bag.
And we've got some more really good ones coming in. But before we get to those, I just kind of want to welcome everybody that's joining us on all of our social media platforms, hanging out with us this morning. Grab your coffee, sit down, relax. We've got hurricane hunter extraordinaire, Josh Morgerman, joining us from the coast. And we've got Dr. Jim Siebert to answer all of your burning questions, but also to just create that sense of community. And that's something I know is really big for you, Josh, coming up this weekend, and Dr. Jim is going to be a part of that community. Tell us, I'm jealous. You guys get to hang out. Josh, in fairness, I was invited. I just can't make it. But you guys are going to go hang out at Josh's house along with tons of other really cool scientific people.
Oh yeah, this is my annual hurricane season kickoff party in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. It's at my house actually, and I want to be really clear, like very clear, not celebrating hurricanes, not doing some pagan ritual to summon a hurricane from the Gulf. It's none of that.
Wow.
It is to celebrate awareness and preparedness, and also this year. Okay, are you sitting? Hurricane
Yes.
Katrina, 20 years ago. 20. Okay, so the party is also to celebrate this region's unbelievable rebound in the last 20 years from what was a cataclysm. This house where I'm sitting right now, my whole block was wiped off the map, nothing left, and now it's a beautiful neighborhood again.
One of the things I'm kind of looking forward to, besides just going to your house, Josh, that's reason enough to go. I'm excited to meet some of the people that Josh has been working with over the last several years, and also to help get his house where it is. We call it the Hurricane House because he's done everything with it to be prepared for hurricanes. And so I'm going to talk to some of the people that have helped make that happen with the siding, the windows, the everything from even the construction of the house. So that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to this weekend.
That'll be fun.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Dr. Jim, that this house, because of where I built, this is a very kind of high risk area, and the house is a specially built hurricane resistant house.
Sorry, they were just talking to my IFB. Can we test the IFB levels real quick? We're not quite live yet. I want to make sure that we can hear them back in the control room.
Well, and the problem is when we talk and they're talking in our ear, it doesn't change the audio, so you really can't hear them. And besides, they have to compete with all the other voices in my head.
Yeah.
So, Marco,
Which
it's
are
not that
funny.
we're just trying not to listen to you.
There
Oh,
we go.
60 seconds.
That's
Okay.
my man. We've got a minute left before we go live on TV.
Right. So a little bit of what we're doing today. So we're doing this on social media. We're going to go. We'll have just a brief moment when we're not here. Then we're going to be live on television, and we're going to be sharing the QR code so people can join us on our social media platforms as well. So we'll be live on TV for about 7 minutes.
Yep.
And then we're going to be back onto the social media thing. So we want your questions. We want to know, what are you thinking about? What would you like to hear about? Would you like to hear from me or Josh or Carissa? And that's kind of what we're doing today.
Yeah, we've got a lot of good stuff to talk about too with potential areas of development in both the Eastern Pacific and the Atlantic. So here in about 15 seconds, join us live on WeatherNation and stay with us here on social media.
So we'll do a little break and we'll be right back. To another edition of Doctor and the Dude. This is a special edition today. Of course, right now you already see Carissa Kloss here, meteorologist Carissa Kloss. We're here in our studios, and we're also today bringing in Josh Morgerman, our favorite hurricane hunter, and we're talking all things tropical related, hurricane season related. We want your questions today, and we're also live on all of our social media platforms at the same time. So if you're watching at home on television or on your screen, Here's the QR code, and we're going to put it up on the screen. You literally can take the picture with your phone, and it will take you right to our social media platforms, and you can choose which one you would like to join on. We also have meteorologists downstairs, our whole team, that they're answering questions. They're also sharing your questions back up here into the studio to us, to Carissa, so that we can answer your questions. So here we go. Josh, how are you doing this morning?
Just getting going. You guys know I'm kind of more of a night owl, so this is a challenge. But just to be with you and Carissa in the morning was enough of an incentive.
Oh,
So
we're
here I am.
honored. We're honored that you would get out of bed for us. All right, Chris, let's get right into it. I know that we have some good questions that are coming in. What do you got for us?
Absolutely. We've got people joining us on Facebook, on X, on YouTube, on Rumble, so make sure you shout things out. But coming up here in the next 7 minutes and then hanging out with us on social media, we're going to be talking about the potential areas of development, because we have those both in the Eastern Pacific and in the Atlantic. Plus, we want to talk about those long-range models, because I know that's something that Josh loves to ride that roller coaster. And we want to talk about June climatology, because we're into hurricane season, but what does that really mean? So we'll start off with our first viewer question. Jenna from Jacksonville wants to know, should I be worried about that? We call it a lemon, casually as meteorologists. It's that big yellow blob, that big yellow X that you see out there in the Atlantic just off of the eastern coastline. Is that something we should be worried about?
I think I'll jump in right away on this one. Now, worried is the interesting part of the question. I think we should be watching this, but worried, it might be a different story, because right now we're talking about a 10% chance of this becoming organized. And even then, we're talking either the difference between a subtropical or a tropical low. And I don't think that this particular system is going to have a chance to do anything like developing all that strong, at least at this point anyway. Josh, what are you thinking about this?
Yeah, I'm with you on this, Dr. Jim. And also, that area of development this time of year, stuff, if it does form in that kind of area, tends to kind of shoot off to the northeast. So there will be some kind of peripheral messy effects on the southeast coast of the U.S. But I don't think it's much of anything to worry about. That's my feeling about it.
Well, and there's other things that are working against it. So the water temperatures, right where it's at now, it's a broad area of low pressure. The water temperatures are about 80, 81 degrees there, but as you go up to the north just a little bit, the water temperature cools into the 70s. So you've got that. We have a front that's going to come off of the coast here in about a day or so, and that's also, I expect that maybe a couple of days. It's going to kind of take that and push it out to sea, maybe also just sort of make it fall apart. And last but not least, our favorite thing to talk about is Saharan dust. There is dust that's coming in, wrapping in from the Gulf and going over Florida, and it's going to get pulled into that system, which just clogs it up. So you put all those things together, and now I wouldn't say I would not worry about it. I would watch it, because things do change.
Right, watch everything. And actually, I want to bring in Kathy on Facebook, because she said, thoughts on the Canadian wildfires? We're seeing Saharan dust meet wildfire smoke, and I'm curious if that's part of it too. Like, if the particles from the wildfire smoke, if that dry air, how that would impact it. And that's something that I think we're just going to have to watch and find out.
Well, and if you think of it, the smoke and the Saharan dust are very similar in nature. It's particulate matter. Okay, it's small particles that are floating in the atmosphere, and I think both of them would do a little bit different. One's maybe a little bit drier than the other, but even not that much. I think they're really so similar that either one of those things would have an influence on it.
And how you can tell we're live, you know what? The National Hurricane Center just dropped the chances of that to 0.
Are you kidding me?
No,
of course they did.
Kevin Schneider is, he's on
did.
YouTube watching things. He's watching the forecast, and he just messaged me to say, hey, it's becoming increasingly likely that development will occur inland over South and North Carolina instead of out over water. But that's something that we watch all the time.
Well, and the other part about that too is that it's not really tropical in nature. And it always makes me a little nervous when the National Hurricane Center is worried about a non-tropical area of low pressure. Because again, for scientists, they're very, very different beasts, right? And so I'm glad that they are, because the more we look at it, it's going to spin. We're going to see some showers off it. We're going to see some elevated tides, no matter what happens, whether it's tropical, subtropical, or whatever. That really was not going to change anyway. So I think that's a good call by the National Hurricane Center.
I want to bring Josh in
Yeah.
real quick. We've got about a minute left here live, and then we can continue this conversation online as well. But talk about those long-range models. The GFS, the American version, the Euro, the long-range version, the love-hate relationship with the Gulf.
Yeah, I'll just say that lemon, I knew it was garbage, and I'm glad it was.
I knew it. I called it.
Just the there's been some sort of like talk on social media about the long range GFS. It keeps showing a hurricane in the Gulf. There's big debate over whether people should look at long range models. Me personally, being the weather weenie that I am, I do look at them. I do take note of them, not the specific details, but if the model keeps showing something happening in the Gulf, I do watch it, and I think it doesn't hurt to. Just don't get crazy about it.
We're going to talk more about that because there's more to talk about, not only the modeling, but also what we've been watching there in the Gulf and what we think may happen. We're out of time on television. Click on the QR code. Join us online where we will continue this conversation.
Stay. Okay. Thank you, Zach, who's sticking around with us on social media. And I gotta jump right back in to that question. We were just talking about long range models. So we have the GFS and the Euro. They're both global models. They take a lot into account. And Josh was talking about how he still watches it and watches for trends. But I also feel like Josh and Jim can both weigh in on this. We can learn from the models at this time of year. We start watching trends. We start thinking about what are they going to be like through the season, because just like everybody, just like Josh waking up this early in the morning, it takes you a little bit of time to get going. And I think the GFS especially, it takes them a little bit to figure out, all right, to get the lay of the land. So what value, whether we follow that roller coaster or not, what value can we still get out of the models this early?
Well, I think Josh hit it right on the head when he said, we're going to watch these. They help us understand trends. They help us see what's possible that's going to happen. Now, as we go into the season more, it tends, for me, I see the GFS tends to get stronger because it's kind of dealing with all of the different variables maybe a little bit better. But at the same time, I never, ever overreact with 1 or 2 runs of a computer model. No matter what it is, I want to see the consistency over time, and I bet Josh agrees with that.
Yeah, for me, long-range GFS, I do use it because it tends to sniff stuff out earlier than other models, so it has a lot of false positives, but I usually learn about a potential hurricane way in the future from the GFS, not from the Euro, so it has that value. And like I say in the long range, I don't focus on the details, just the general sort of idea. If run after run is showing some kind of closed low in the Gulf, even if it's in different places and stuff, I get the feeling, okay, the GFS is saying in 12 days, the Gulf is going to be favorable for development. That's what I take away. One last thing I'll say, if the long range GFS and the Euro ensembles are both showing something, that to me is a good sign to really keep watch. And we're getting some hints from those 2 models about Gulf activity possibly as well.
Well, and what we really don't know at this point either, we know that something is probably going to happen in there, but we don't know exactly what. Could it be a tropical tropical storm or hurricane? Yeah, possibly. Yeah. It could also be a depression or even just an area of low pressure that doesn't quite get there. Because again, the caveat too is, what is the dust going to be doing a week and a half from now? And that is a little hard to tell because the dust moves a lot faster than the storms do themselves.
I have another online question. Pest Hunter Outdoors wants to know what the temperatures are in the Gulf. And I'll extend that out to the Atlantic too, because that's been such a hot button issue these last 2 years, is how far above average those sea surface temperatures have been.
That is a really good question. And the answer is it's kind of complicated because there's different pockets around the Gulf that get warmer than others quicker. And especially where you have anything that's closer to the equator. So when you have the Gulf Stream that kind of wraps around the Gulf itself, it tends to warm as it's in there as well. And as I was just talking about a few minutes ago, Right now on the Atlantic side of Florida, temperatures are in the low 80s, and we're seeing kind of similar things in the Gulf. And so there's a lot more than just saying, what's the temperature?
Right.
And also it's the depth of that warmth too. And right now the depth of all those temperatures is not as deep. You know, like when you go into a lake and you put your foot in, you go, oh, it doesn't feel so bad. Then you jump in and it's really cold. Okay. So the deeper that warm layer is also has a huge influence on the storms. At least that's how I'm seeing it right now.
Go ahead, Josh.
One last thing I'll add to that, though, is I was looking at the Gulf temperature specifically. I'm always interested in that. And at least as recently as a couple of days ago, there was a big sort of warm area off of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, a very, very warm area. And that's interesting to me because that can influence what happens with a hurricane in those final hours as it's pushing ashore. So I found that interesting. That could be a dangerous feature.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. The other thing, too, is that we haven't really had any major storm systems in the Gulf, so the water hasn't been churned or turned over very much. So that could have an influence, too. And I think that's one of the things that the GFS is seeing those kinds of variables and going, well, something could happen here.
Checking in with everybody on social media. Karen, who I said from New Jersey, she's actually from the UK. Thank you, Karen, for saying hi and being with us this morning. Casper on Facebook, he wants to know how he gets an invite to your party, Josh. I think the guest list is closed, so maybe next year for him. But he also wants to know your quick thoughts on the quiet Western Pacific season so far this year. Because, Josh, you go international. There is no storm you won't be on the ground for.
Yeah, and just for viewers who don't know, so we have our Atlantic hurricane season, which goes from June 1st to November 30th. The Western Pacific, where they get typhoons, and a typhoon is a hurricane, same thing. Their season kind of starts earlier and it ends later. Basically, it's typhoon season all year there. The fact that we've not had a typhoon and it's already June is really interesting, and it's I'm not sure what's up with that. One thing I'll say is, the Western Pacific, which is the world's engine for tropical cyclones, that area cranks out more than anywhere else, including the Atlantic, has been kind of below average the last several years. While we've been cranking in the Atlantic, things have been a little on the slower side in the Western Pacific. There seems to be some kind of inverse relationship, but the slowness this year is distinctive. It's really interesting. I think we're still trying to get a handle on what's going on with that, but it's a great question because I'm wondering it myself.
And while we're on the topic of climatology, if you don't mind me jumping in, we've got another viewer question from Ed in Louisiana who wants to know, how often do we see hurricanes in June? Because we're in hurricane season, but normally we really don't talk about the peak until August and September.
Well, and of course, Josh is a walking encyclopedia of tropical weather. I am not. But what I do know, though, is that we do tend to see more tropical storms, especially in the Gulf at this time of year. Josh, let's hear it from you. Mr. Encyclopedia.
Yeah. Exactly. No, and I love talking hurricane climatology. Yeah, just get me started. I can't stop. You're going to have to cut to a commercial.
Well, we have visual aids for you too. Don't worry. If we've got that graphic that shows all of the landfalls, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So in terms of, I'm going to talk about really quickly about hurricane climatology in June in the U.S. Okay, so since 1900, there have been 12 hurricane landfalls in the U.S. in June. Okay, so 12 over like 150 years. So not that common. What we find is there's two sort of clusters. They either tend to hit Texas, Louisiana, or they hook into Florida. It's kind of one of those two. There's like they bifurcates into two areas. So those tend to be where June hurricanes happen. But I'll just wrap this up by saying one really interesting thing. They were more common early in the 20th century. We have not had a June hurricane in the U.S. since 1986, so almost 40 years. So we've had a drought of June hurricane activity in the U.S. We've gotten close with a couple of strong tropical storms, and some of those tropical storms have been very impactful, like Allison in the Houston metro area in 2001, but no hurricanes in the U.S. in June in almost 40 years.
Well, now that you said that, Josh,
Yeah.
it's going to happen. This is the year.
Not like we're jinxing it.
Yeah.
Is there
I
wood
jinxed
around
it.
here?
Yeah,
hold on.
exactly.
I'm like,
So
some
that's
of
going to
this,
happen
some
now.
of that, a little bit of this is glass. That doesn't do me any good, but
It's true though. Stuff like that, it happens. It's like if you're watching a basketball game and the announcers say, "Hey, this guy has made 10 out of 10 free throws." Boom,
Nope.
miss. They're gonna miss.
You never say in baseball he's pitching a no-hitter.
Oh, you don't say
Nope.
the word no hitter.
Nope, you don't say perfect game until
Okay.
after it's over.
Well, if I jinxed it, I apologize to everybody who's
Right.
impacted.
Right. But I don't think you'd be mad because you are happy. You'll be happily out there on the Gulf, whether it's Texas or Florida, standing in the middle of it. Josh, I got to ask, how many hurricanes have you been in? What's the count at
It's a
now?
crazy number.
I have been in the inner cores, meaning the scary part, of 80 hurricanes, 80 around the world, which is a world record, I might add.
And I might also add that most people that go through one say they will never ever do that again, and you have done it more than 80 times.
Oh yeah,
I'm not sure what that says.
Like when you watch like the Addams Family and like what we think is ugly, they think is beautiful. You know,
love it.
like that's sort of like being a storm chaser. Like what you're really into and makes you happy is like makes everyone unhappy.
I will say this, because we work with Josh on most of these hurricanes, and the thing that's scariest for us is that we have great contact with Josh as the storm is coming closer, and then the storm gets there, and then all communications are lost, and there's no cell phone, anything, there's nothing, and we don't hear from Josh for 24 hours, and that 24 hours, Chris and we're a nervous wreck. We're worried about him. We know he's going to be okay, but every time when there's that dead zone where we can't get any information, it's terrible on this end.
It is. And every time I finally get a hold of Josh, and then I'm like, oh, thank goodness. Josh is like, why were you worried? Like, I got it. And so I keep telling myself, he's got it under control. He knows what he's doing. He's got this every single time, because you take a ton of precautions. And we always want folks at home to make sure that they're ready for hurricane season. Now is the time to prepare. And we have another viewer question. And this one is from, hold on, I got to find it, at Louisiana Photos. She finds it hard not to stress eat all of the snacks before landfall because she knows that we need to have 1 gallon of water per person per day if you're riding out the storm. But she wants to know, how many stacks should we stock per person? What should we be looking at for food?
There is no
That's
such thing as
too
many. Yeah, there's no such thing as too many snacks. Okay, so you know yourself, and you know how much you want to eat, especially if you're a nervous eater too, which is a good possibility when a storm is approaching. I would suggest you need to plan accordingly. So depending on the category, you might say, okay, category 1 is going to be 1 thing of Oreos. Category 2, I need 2 things of Oreos. Category 3, I need 3 things of Oreos and add some Pringles. So now I will say this too, though. Make sure that you have things so that you can take them with you if you do have to evacuate. And so lighter snacks make it so you can actually fit more in the bag. That's what I would say.
Well, and it's funny because we've been talking about doing this Facebook Live and all of these social media platforms and on air, and even our own newsroom has some questions. Dawson, our producer, wants to know, Josh, if you're more afraid of hunting hurricanes or the 8 inches of snow that they saw in Bay St. Louis this winter.
Oh, that's a great question. The snow was very disturbing to me. I will admit that it chilled me to the bone. No pun intended. But I came down to the Gulf Coast to live in hurricane country, and because I'm a weirdo who loves heat and humidity and all that, and having my property just buried under 8 inches of snow and worrying about my pipes freezing, that to me, that was harrowing.
Yeah, I'm with him on that one. Although I live up at 7,000 feet in the mountains.
Jim calls 8 inches of snow a Tuesday.
Yeah, that is nothing.
That's a pretty low key at Jim's house. I want to say a quick hello to Red. He said, no, leave June alone. No hurricanes, please and thank you.
I'm with you on that.
And to everyone else who's been joining us on social media, we're so grateful that you came to hang out with us this morning, have your coffee and your breakfast with us.
All right, yeah, keep that conversation going. You can always join us online, and of course, we're going to have a Doctor and the Dude throughout the whole year. So everybody, be safe, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Josh.